Okay, welcome. This video is going to go over solving square root equations. So equations that have like root x in them. Getting ready for the MTA test. And along the way, we're going to talk about something called extraneous solutions, which kind of comes up a lot in these questions. So anyways, it's just a couple sample ones. If you feel like you got this, you can try it. If not, you can watch the first one and then maybe try some of the later ones. But the idea, of solving is with a root, you're going to square both sides to get rid of it. So here it is going to square both sides, and then what happens is on the left, it just cleans up nice and pretty. It just becomes x plus 2, right? Because the root and the square cancel out, which is kind of what we want. Unfortunately, on the other side, we've got x minus 4 times x minus 4 again. That's what this square means. So now we got a FOIL. So now this problem gets quite a bit more complex. So basically, if we FOIL that right-hand side, x times x, negative 4 times x, negative 4 times x again, and then negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. And we can combine some like terms there to give us minus 8x. Okay, and then when you solve, this is an equation, like an x squared equation with x and x called the quadratic. So when you solve this, you can either do the quad formula, you can graph it on a calculator, or you can factor, right? Which is, I think I'm going to at least try to factor. And if I can't factor, then I do one of the other ones. But at any rate, any of these requires 0 on one side first. So kind of the first step is to minus an x and minus a 2 to get 0 on one side. So that gives us 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 14. And now it looks like it will factor. If we make two little binomials, x and x make the x squared, and then it's going to multiply to 14 and add to negative 9. So because it multiplies to positive 14 but adds to a negative, it's got to be two negatives, and it's just going to be 2 and 7. Okay, and that makes the solutions to this. Once you have these two little factors, set each factor to 0. And then our solutions are 2 and 7. Okay, and so the only thing is, we got to say like not so fast, because like at least initially that seems like it should be letter C here. But this is where this idea of extraneous solution comes in. So what that means is we got to go back on these square root ones at least. We got to go back to the original equation and see if these answers actually work. So if I take the 2, for example, and put it in for x, basically I'm checking. I'm going to do is put an x here, square root of 2 plus 2, is that equal to 2 minus 4? And the answer we get is we get square root of 4 equals negative 2, and that's not true. Because it's kind of true because it can be both plus or minus 2, but in these questions they treat these as positive roots. So basically the square root of 4 is 2, so we say 2 is not equal to negative 2, so this is not an answer. So actually that's not an answer. I think it's going to be just 7. And just to be safe, let's check 7 to make sure that that works. But if I put 7 into this, I'll do it over here. We have square root of 7 plus 2, and does that equal 7 minus 4? Put 7 here and here. So we end up with the square root of 9 equaling 3, and that's a true statement. So this one checks out, so that one's good. So 7 is the answer, and 2 does not count. That's called an extraneous solution. Okay, so same thing here. Give this a shot. And please note that like if you didn't know how to do this on the test, you could just take these answers and just plug them in and check, right? And that would actually take care of the idea of an extraneous solution right away. Like that's actually probably what I should have done here, is just put in the numbers and see which ones worked, because that would help us figure out that this is extraneous right off the bat. But anyways, I don't know. If you want to put them in and check, that works. If you want to try to solve it, you can also try that. Just pause the video and try it first. Okay, so anyways, if I was not just plugging them in and checking, what I would do is square both sides, but then I got to make sure to put a parentheses and square that whole side. So the left-hand side cleans up pretty, but then the right-hand side, you got to do 2x times 2x. So the parentheses definitely matter there because you get 4x squared. Sometimes students will write 2x squared, but you got to do 2x times 2x. That's what it looks like to square it. Okay, and now we're back to just like the last one. Now this is a quadratic, so we can quadratic formula graph or factor. right? And in any case, we got to get the 0 on one side. So I usually keep the x squared positive. You don't have to do that, but I usually do that. And then this one's going to be hard to factor because of the 4 in front. So I would just use my calculator to find my answer. So I think you can actually factor it if you want to do long factor, but I'm too lazy to do that. I'm just going to throw it in here. 4x squared minus x minus 3, and then hit graph. I'm going to zoom it. My window's all messed up, so I'm going to zoom it back to the standard window. And it looks like it's crossing at about 1. And based on the answer choices, I'm going to say that's negative 3/4. So let's go back and look here. So this is going to be, I got x equals 1 and x equals negative 3/4. Okay, and so then the only thing is, again, we've got to check them for extraneous. Okay, so like if we check the 1 quick, let's see. So if I put in 1 here, we'd have the square root of 1 plus 3. And does that equal 2 times 1? So root 4 does equal 2. So this one definitely checks out. This one's a good answer. And then if we test the other one, we're going to do square root. And I'm going to do negative 0.75 just to make life easy instead of the fraction value there. Right, so 3/4 is 0.75, so this is negative 0.75. So here you end up with square root of 2.25 and saying, is that equal negative 1.5? And again, the square root is positive here, so you get 1.5, which is not equal to negative 1.5. So this one, again, would be extraneous and does not work. So the only answer that works here is x equals 1. Okay, next one. So this is again tied to the idea of extraneous. So like generally speaking, we've been kind of getting 2 answers here, but one of them has been extraneous. So this one's kind of asking how many answers does it have. And so to do that, we got to solve it and then check for extraneous. So to be similar to the other steps, so maybe pause the video and try it before continuing. Okay, so here I'm going to square both sides to get rid of the root, but that means the left-hand side is going to have to FOIL because we have x minus 2 squared, which is x minus 2 times x minus 2. Okay, but we got to do it because that'll cancel out the root over here. Okay, and now it's just FOIL time. So x times x, negative 2 times x, negative 2 times x again, negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, and then combine the minus 2x is there, so minus 4x. And then again, we got 0 on one side because this is a quadratic. So you can get 0 on one side, so minus x. And then again, you could just graph on your calculator or a factor. Honestly, I like graph, but this one, because it's a single x squared, it actually factors pretty easily. We have x and x, and then it's 2 negative numbers. It's going to add up to 5 here. Negative 5, sorry. So I think it's just negative 1, negative 4. That multiplies to positive 4 and adds to 5. And that gives us answers of x equals 1 and x equals 4. So at least initially, it seems like it has 2 answers. Right? But then let's do the extraneous solution trick. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to erase this to make it a little more clear. And let's check the 1. So if x is 1, we'd have 1 minus 2. Does that equal the square root of 1? And negative 1 does not equal the square root of 1. Negative 1 is not equal to 1. So this one doesn't work. And then let's check the 4. So 4 minus 2, does that equal the square root of 4? So there we get 2 equals root 4. And since we're doing the positive root, 2 equals 2. So this one checks out. So this one actually only has one answer because the 1 is an extraneous solution again. Okay. So straight up, this one is just asking which one is extraneous, so like which one doesn't count. So let's see, how should we do this? So an extraneous solution has to be like when you work out the steps, you get the answer, but then when you plug it in, it doesn't work. So I was tempted just to plug these in to see which one doesn't work, but I think we actually got to work out the answers because extraneous technically is one you get down here, but then when you plug it in, it doesn't work. So let's do the steps. They're very similar to the other ones. Again, pause the video. Okay, so we're going to start by squaring both sides. and then that makes this side just x squared, and then this just cleans up, so it's just x plus 6. And now if I was solving, I would get 0 on one side, and again, I usually keep the x squared positive, so I would minus x and minus 6 on both sides. Okay, and then we're going to factor, so I'm going to put x and x here, and then multiply to negative 6, so that means it's 1 negative, 1 positive, and add up to negative 1, so I think it's 3 and 2, with the 3 negative and the 2 positive. Okay, and then if you set those to 0, we get answers of 3 and negative 2. And then extraneous would be if we plug, so my contenders are either, these ones could be extraneous, so we plug them in and see if either of them fail. All right, so let's go and try one at a time. So let's try the 3 first. So we get 3 equals square root of 3 plus 6. So 3 is equal to square root of 9 if we do the positive root. So this one's okay, it's not extraneous. And then I'm guessing negative 2 will fail here. So if we do negative 2 and then negative 2 plus 6 in the root, so you get negative 2 and then square root of 4. And since it's the positive root again, it doesn't work out, so this one fails. So we would say, which is the extraneous? The extraneous solution is negative 2. Okay, so a lot of these have similar patterns if we review all this, right? So if we look at all of these, we all the time got 2 answers when we worked out the steps, when we squared both sides and did the steps. But then one of them failed, right? Called an extraneous. So like it's asked in a little bit different way. Like this one asks how many answers does it have, and it's 1. This one asks which one is extraneous, but it's kind of the same idea each time. Is when you solve these root ones, you usually will get 2 answers, but then one of them won't work, which is called an extraneous solution. All right, that's all I got. Thank you for watching.